Welcome to Random Conflux, the most must-see video channel on YouTube.
I don't know about that. What do you think, Matt? Are we the most must-see channel?
Most? No. Must you see us to believe us? Yes.
And even then, that's a far reach.
I'll take it.
So, WWE, what do you want to talk about?
We're not the WWE. You tried this last time.
No.
Mario Animation?
No?
No. In all actuality, we're going to be continuing our topic on Dungeons and Dragons today.
Yes, this is Random Conflux. Only found on YouTube.
Alright, so, here's the question. When you get into the game, do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, or do you want to play something else? There's actually a lot of other games that have been inspired by Dungeons and Dragons, and games that have inspired Dungeons and Dragons. There are multiple games that I've tried out throughout the years. If you're into Japanese and Eastern culture, one of the games that you can play is Legend of the Five Rings. Okay? Focuses on samurai, ninja, the courts, the corruption, things like that. Okay?
We forgot to announce ourselves. I'm Zach.
I'm John.
And I guess I'm Matt, if it matters.
Yeah, Matt's finally here for video.
I'm the voice that shows up every once in a while. I was here when we started, and I'll be here when we end, and I'm spottily here throughout. Only because I live so far away and stuff happens.
You live practically right next door to me.
I live next door to you, but he's the one who lives far away, technically, and we got to get him here, and we can't always get him here, and I've got kids and a wife, and stuff happens, and we can record more over the summer, and you know it.
I see how it is.
It's your fault. I blame you, Zach. But anyways, other than
because I
Legend...
don't have a life. I
Exactly.
see how it is.
Exactly. Other than Legend of the Five Rings, there's also the games of World of Darkness and Vampire the Masquerade, Mage, Werewolf the Apocalypse. Those all come in the same kind of realm.
The tabletop version of Cyberpunk that came before the video game.
There's Cyberpunk Red. There's Cyberpunk a couple different years. There's like 2043, 2077, 2090 something.
There was the Diablo board game before
Yeah.
it became a PC game.
Yep. Another thing that inspired Diablo, that was inspired by D&D, was Might and Magic. Okay, that was a video game that eventually became a board game. Okay, lots of different options out there. There are many things on Kickstarter. No, we're not funded by them, but are sponsored. But you should definitely check them out. Okay, where, like, for example, it just got approved. If anybody here's fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender, okay, they literally made a board game that is an RPG like D&D / board game, funded on Kickstarter, and they just funded it a little bit ago, and it's going to come out, I believe, either by the end of this year or beginning of next year, and then it'll be available to everybody to buy.
Cool.
You can't do stuff like that unless you do crowdfunding like Kickstarter. There's a lot of options out there, but we're going to focus on D&D. So, in Dungeons and Dragons, one of the things that we were talking about last time is class. The class
You're
that you
talking
want to
like
play.
fancy suit, monocle,
No.
fine wine.
No.
Okay.
No.
Just no, Jay.
How dare you? You're going to jail.
You're talking about the keycap people, the short people, the tall people,
No,
the
that's...
pointy ear people.
No, that's race. We're talking about class.
Oh, so the magic people, the warrior people, the goblin people.
No, goblin is race still. Okay, so we're talking about barbarian, ranger, fighter, monk, cleric, sorcerer, wizard, warlock, bard, rogue, paladin,
Magic little fairy princess?
all those artificer. Lots of different classes out there. If I missed one or two, forgive me. But there you go. Your class is the style of play that your character will be. So, for example, if you're going to be a very melee-oriented character and be up there in the heat of combat, maybe you want to be a barbarian or a fighter or a paladin, something that's going to be dealing out the damage.
What about like a warrior archer? Someone that has like a warrior class, but also like a archer class.
You would Ranger or fighter.
Yeah, ranger or fighter can do that. Okay. Also, rogue has ranged options, and even though rogue, you're playing more of damage per second rather than damage per hit. That's still something you can do with rogue. Okay. If you want to be somebody who is a caster, but you still want to do something melee oriented, you can have a warlock that's a hexblade warlock that focuses on melee weapons. Or let's say you want to be a caster and focus on melee, you can have a bard that the college that they learn from is the College of Swords, and you can do that.
Bards can do anything.
But what like a caster, like someone that does spells, but also someone that shoots a bow?
Okay, so
because you see that as elves mostly in anything that
you're still talking
predicts like medieval type.
You're still talking about ranger. Ranger is limited number of spells, can use ranged, can use melee if they want, okay? And they're typically the hunter, okay, of some kind, all right? Something that else to focus on with classes is subclasses. As an example, for the fighter, the 3 main subclasses are as follows. You play the fighter from level 1, and then at level 3, you get your subclass. First 3 subclass options are Champion, Battle Master, and Eldritch Knight. A champion is your atypical warrior fighter, okay? Somebody who is really good at hitting criticals, really good at athletics, really good at making saves, okay? Then you have your Battle Master. They are the person that knows how to maneuver around the field of battle in a way that pretty much nobody else but a rogue can pull off, okay? Then you have your Eldritch Knight. This is your spell sword that you would get from, like, if you played Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, what a spell sword would be, something like that, where you're doing magic like a wizard, but you're fighting like a fighter, okay? Every class has subclasses. And there's more subclasses than just those 3. Those are just the 3 that are in the player's handbook. There's other books such as Tasha's Guide to Everything, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and several other books where you can get subclasses out of. Okay? There's lots of books for races. They've condensed it recently into the Player's Handbook and Monsters of the Multiverse. Monsters of the Multiverse, I think, has over 20 extra races to play. Okay? Race is another thing that we gotta talk about. Race is your goblins, your half-orcs, your elves, your half-elves, your dwarves, your humans, your dragonborn.
Princess?
Yes, you can play a fairy. Okay? the Monsters of the Multiverse, you can play a fairy. Okay? You can play a sea elf, you can play merfolk, you can play a centaur, you can play a minotaur. Okay? You can play a vast plethora. You play a turtle. Okay? Turtle race.
What?
Turtle race. Think Ninja Turtle, basically.
Oh.
Okay? You can play a Warforged, which is made of metal and sinew and wood and iron and magically powered. Think a fantasy version of a Terminator.
I know 2 of your favorite races are Warforged and Flesh Golems. I know it's
Yeah.
those 2 and Orcs.
Okay, well, Flesh Golems, you can't play that as a race technically. That was back in 3.5 that you could play them. 3.5 released a book called Savage Species where you could play any monster as a class. So your race was your class, and it was really cool. But needless to say, yes, in 5th edition, Warforged and Variant Human are my 2 go-tos. Those are the ones I like the most.
What is a flesh orc?
Flesh Golem.
Okay, golem.
Think
Frankenstein's monster.
Or Frankenstein's monster, yeah.
Yeah, Frankenstein's monster. That's a flesh golem.
Okay.
Something sewn and knitted together, brought back to life, so on and so forth.
So basically, a reanimated corpse or a creature created by corpse. types.
Yes. Now there is an option in 5th edition to play something like them that is in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, which that is a supplement to Curse of Strahd, which is D&D's version of Dracula. Okay.
Yeah.
Where you can play as a Dhampir, which is one of your parents was a vampire, pretty much. Okay, all right. You can play as it's a hex something. It's your witch. There was a witch somehow involved in your creation, or a reborn. Reborn is you could be stitched together like Adam was. Frankenstein's monster Adam. Okay, or
I didn't know
his name was yes.
Oh.
Yes, in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, his name was Adam. And everybody calls Adam Frankenstein when Frankenstein was the doctor. That's why I correctly say Frankenstein's monster.
You're correct.
I never knew like Frankenstein's monster actually had a name.
Yep. They even in the movie they it was only once or twice, but they called him Adam. Okay? But yes, anyways, moving on. Okay? So you can play a reborn. A reborn could be, you don't look knitted together, but you can feel the straw itching there inside your skin. Or you could just be brought back from the dead, okay? And you're not undead, but you're not alive either, okay?
Well, here's another thing, and I know that this may be a question that some of the viewers may get because of how people now associate with anime culture and how anime culture has been gravitating towards like D&D with Chaos Dragon, a lot of isekai type,
Isekai,
type of shows. How would you play an isekai character in Dungeons and Dragons?
That is an excellent question. Here's the reason why, okay? And no, I did not plan that. All right? Here's the thing.
It was totally planned.
One of the funnest things to do in D&D is to say, what would I be like if I was dropped into the world of D&D? Which is the definition of an isekai, okay? It's a person from our world being dropped into a fantasy world with the knowledge of fantasy games and things like that, okay? So, if I was dropped into that world, what would I be like? Well, in real life, I'm 443 pounds, okay? All right, I've lost over 100 pounds in the past couple months. I'm working on my weight, but I use a crutch, okay? So my constitution score, because remember, last time, folks, we talked about ability scores. My constitution score would technically be in the negatives. It would be like an 8 out of 20, okay? Because I don't have a high constitution due to it. Now, here's the other thing, though. Let's say maybe I can handle liquor, okay? All right, I'm not able to walk very well. I'm not able to move very well. Maybe I have a resistance to poisons, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways to balance out who you are and what you are, okay? You have to be honest with yourself about your stats when you're trying to figure out who you are. And it's another thing to go, okay, well, I imagine myself as a great barbarian. But do you really have the rage, or is it just anger? Okay? You have to sit there.
Well, wouldn't rage and anger be the same thing?
That's not it. According to D&D, there is anybody can get angry. Anyone can be wrathful or rageful. But when it comes to a barbarian, rage, true rage, is something that not a lot of people have, because it's the ability to take that rage and harness it.
So it's sort of like the equivalence between anger, like rage from just anger is chaos rage.
Mm-hmm.
And rage that you would see a barbarian using as controlled rage.
Yes, because even in a barbarian losing control, they have to be able to point it in the right direction. Okay, a good way to put it. If you ever watch Edward Norton's The Incredible Hulk, spoiler alert, towards the end of the movie, he says he wants to jump out of this helicopter, land as the Hulk, and fight the Abomination. And they're like, how do you know you'll even turn? He's like, how can you know you even control it? Maybe you'll just mess things up. Maybe you'll destroy the city too. And he goes, I don't need to control him if I can just point him in the right direction. Give him one focal point. And that's what he does. Stop Abomination. And that's what Hulk does. That rage is put into a central point, a focus point. And that's all you have to do. You can lose control after that. Heck, one of the subclasses for a barbarian is Berserker. Okay? Where you get exhaustion from the control. And you can't even drop out of it until there's no enemies around you anymore. And you even have a chance of hurting your own friends. So if you want to take that, you do more damage to your enemies, and you're more of a threat, but you can even hurt your friends. And so on and so forth.
Like Broly from
Yes.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yes, very much like Broly.
Hulk is actually a very good example from Berserk in controlled rage.
Yes.
And Bruce Banner being, okay, well, I can be rageful too, but this is what happens when my rage goes too far.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody said that Bruce Banner was a pacifist.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said that Bruce Banner couldn't feel anger.
Mm-hmm.
But Bruce Banner had a way to control it to a point where, okay, as long as I keep some of my cool, I'm not going to turn into the Hulk and go berserk.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, if I need that extra strength, I can let myself go.
Yeah.
All I have to do is point myself in the right direction, limit the chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just following
Oh,
you
you're
guys.
just saying, I thought you wanted to say something.
I was agreeing.
Okay. All right, so.
I thought of something like with Baldur's Gate, but that's not the same thing as D&D. It's similar, very similar, but
It could be.
It's very similar because it was inspired by D&D, but they really took their own way with the rules.
Yeah,
so.
but one thing that is fun with that game though is it's literally a build called Throwing Barbarian, and you can make like barbarians that just throw crap for tons of damage.
Yes. Use anything as a weapon was a skill in 3.5 that I very much liked. Okay.
And they have that option in the game. It's funny.
Wasn't. Yeah, that was a board game at one time, wasn't it?
Baldur's Gate? It might have been. I know it was.
I know it was a video game to start with.
Yeah, and I was talking about 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do that, and if you can do that in a party full of gnomes, and you can just take the barbarian and start throwing gnomes.
But anyways, okay, continue to talk more about classes and races and things like that. There's something called meta building, okay? And meta is in every game that exists, no matter what the game is.
Meta or mana?
M-E-T-A, meta, okay? A meta build is, I have taken what I wanted and I have made the best possible thing that I can out of it. It is also called min-maxing, okay? Where if I'm playing a fighter and the only stats that I need to really honestly worry about are my physical stats, maybe all of my physical stats are really high, but all of my mental stats are really low, and I don't mind playing a dumb idiot in the game so long as when I'm on the field of battle, I can fuck something up.
Now there's you can do that in a lot of games. There's people that do that in Fallout. There's people that do that in D&D. There's people.
In Fallout, everybody knows what that is. It is a vault.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're so high into the luck stat.
Yeah.
That no matter what you do, you're going to have I think it's like a
bonus experience.
A 90% or an 80%, depending on but when you're like that high up on that luck tree, plus there's like plenty of parts where you can put into leveling up Idiot Savant to increase the percentage chance.
Yeah.
that it'll activate.
And the thing about Fallout 2 is there's no wrong way to build. It's actually very viable to have just high luck and high charisma in Fallout New Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
You're good for the entire game.
Well, what he was talking about, that's Ace of Honor.
Yeah. Same
Plain
difference,
as
yeah.
day.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can do that with any class. If you're a class that focuses on charisma and wisdom, make those your absolute highest stats, and then just go from there. Now, something that D&D used to do is that race had bonuses to ability scores. For example, okay, in 3.5, if you played a half-orc, you got a bonus to your strength, a bonus to your constitution, but then I believe it was your intelligence had a negative to it, okay? When they went to 5th edition, they took away the negatives, okay? And they just had the bonuses. But nowadays, everybody's becoming so, and I'm not starting something here.
Woke?
I wasn't going to put it like that, but yes. Everybody's becoming so woke, and everybody has to be included and diverse. I'm not saying that's a wrong thing. I'm just stating that's where this came from. Now, instead of each race having its own specific bonuses to certain stats, every race, you either get +1 to 3 stats, or +2 to a stat and +1 to another stat. You choose where they go. And some people say, oh, that takes away the flavor of the race, because half-orc should naturally be a strong race, so you should put their big bonus into strength. Other people are saying, oh, you can have a skinny orc, you can have a short orc, you can have an orc that's not strong. That's fine and all.
Well, when I picture an orc, I picture like a 10-foot tall, mountain-sized
Hulk.
Yes.
You know, that's what
meat bag.
Yeah, a big old meaty thing. But everybody's becoming more inclusive and diverse now. So now they have it set up as of Monsters of the Multiverse when that book came out. All the races are, you just pick whichever stat you want to be your +2, and another stat to be your +1, or 3 stats to be +1 each. And that's it.
As a DM, you allow either way, too.
Yes, you can go with what was traditional, or you can go with that.
Mm-hmm.
I allow it both ways.
Well, I just have kind of an opinion on it, and people can take it or leave it or whatever. But this stuff about the woke crap, to me, I feel like it's starting to ruin a lot of like things that already have plenty of history built to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have Dungeons and Dragons that have been around for years.
Mm-hmm.
And now, just to make it woke friendly, they're letting people do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically taking their own rule book that they made over centuries ago and tossing it right out the window.
Now, here's the thing. I do want to state this because I know people are going to wonder what the opinion on this is. This is me, Matt, my opinion, okay? When it comes to things like the Drow are a black-skinned, white-hair, underground living, typically evil-oriented, okay, race. Okay?
Would that be a dark elf?
Yes, it's a dark elf. That's exactly what it is. Okay? Now, when D&D was made, they were made to be the bad guys. A lot of people say that because of the times from when D&D was made, that was a knock towards people of color.
Yeah.
Okay? So they're trying to get away from
But
that.
you can kind of say that DC from Warner Brothers was doing the same thing with the Martians. There were white Martians and green Martians, which the white Martians turned into white people, green Martians turned into black people,
Yeah.
and the white Martians enslaved the green Martians.
Exactly, but anyways, that was something that they were doing, is they were, now they're trying to say that, oh, the Drow aren't all evil. The Drow aren't all bad, okay? And I'm not trying to say that you can't play a Drow, that you can play a Drow right in the player's handbook, okay? And they can be a good person. The idea behind it is you can have people of all flavors in every race, every class, every type. But they don't really want you to think of them as a typically evil race when they are. But that's something that you can go ahead and take away from it is it's not meant to be a racial thing in real life. It's just a fantasy thing. Now, that's what a Session Zero is about. And I think I briefly touched on this in the other video. But something that everybody should do is a Session Zero. And Session Zero is when you sit down and you talk about what you're comfortable having in your campaign. Yep. Okay? If you've ever heard of hard limits for people, yep. Okay? It's maybe anything to deal with children is a hard limit for you, so you make sure that children aren't involved in the campaign, or at least that they don't get hurt or put in any bad positions.
And that's something you would do when you do campaigns.
Exactly. Maybe ethnic or racism is a hard limit for you, so you make sure that that's not in your campaigns. Now, there's people out there saying, oh, you shouldn't have that in there anyways. What is this? This is a simulation of another world in all of its good and bad. Okay? If I have 5 players at my table and they're okay dealing with a racial divide between elves and dwarves, then by gosh, that was what we're going to play. Okay? Because it makes for good politics, it makes for good story.
And the part of the story could be them learning to get along or things like that.
Exactly. Maybe the player's whole point is to erase the divide and bring the dwarves and the elves together. Mm-hmm. Okay? I would say that's a good fighting point, that's a good starting point, that's a good thing to try to get rid of the pain and diversity or the suffering in the world.
Yeah.
But that's what I was talking about, is just having a Session Zero is something you can do to figure out what you guys are comfortable with in a campaign, what your hard limits are, what's okay. If you're okay with a racial divide and the players trying to help those two races come together and overcome their differences, mm-hmm. then do it. If everybody at your table is against having children get hurt, then play the campaign with no children get hurt. You know, there are ways to play the game and be comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that's why the DM is there to help you figure out what you want. Whenever I sit my players down...
Well, let me ask you a question, and probably this will help clarify some things.
Okay.
The DM is more or less like a judge, jury, executioner, the main person that really helps solidify the rules whenever you're creating a campaign.
Okay. Kind of. This is how I would put it. Okay? Whenever you have a DM, the DM does 3 things. Like I was about to say, whenever I sit down with my players, I ask them, what are your goals for your character? Because you have goals that you want to get out of it. Maybe you want to get a magic item. Maybe you want to get to a certain level. Maybe you want to develop your character to a certain way that works with your backstory, whatever. I try to achieve my players' goals slowly over time so they have something to work towards. I try to make sure that everybody is comfortable when they play, and I try my darndest to direct the story in the way it's supposed to go, which many, many, many times the players throw monkey wrenches into my plan.
Back to doing stuff that...
But that's the whole point of DM, is to help narrate the story that's going on.
Yes, but the main storyteller is the players. Yeah. It's not the DM. Even though the DM gives a story, it's more like the DM gives a backstory and the players forge the narrative.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like you were talking about doing, like making sure people were comfortable with the campaign.
Yeah.
That's anything. Like for instance, we have a friend who has a phobia of clowns. You wouldn't put a circus in the campaign for that reason.
Exactly. And if I did, or if I was going to use clowns for any reason, I would let them know in advance and make sure it was okay.
Yeah.
And done in a way where it wouldn't bother them. Same person's afraid of spiders, so I don't have giant spiders in the campaign.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is when a dungeon master takes all that time to come up with a story, to come up with a campaign, is it like, do you make, okay, here's part 1, and then make A, B, and C direction, or like alternative paths? And then what I'm trying to say is, as a DM, would it be right to say that in one way you have like a narrative road for your players to go on that gets to where they're going quicker, but yet there's also path separations, sort of like how trees work?
Okay, so to answer your question, I know what you're getting at. Okay, here's the thing. Whenever I make a story, now I'm an extemporaneous DM. Extemporaneous means I do my stuff off the cuff. Very minimal planning. Maybe I write down some bullet points at best, and I make it up as I go. Okay, I literally pull it out of my butt. Okay, that's how I play. There are DMs though that prepare everything to a T. They have notebooks, folders full of every NPC you'll run across, every possible path you could take. Okay, that span out like branches in a tree, like you're talking about. Okay, there's the main story, but you can go here, you can go there, you can go there. You eventually want to work your way back to that main branch and work your way up the tree, but you can go out and do other things. Just like in video games like Skyrim. Of course there's a main story to follow through. It's the story that deals with the two main factions, okay, and that deals with you being a dragonborn and all that, okay? But there's tons of other things that you can go do amongst all of that. Okay.
Best way I can describe it is, you remember Flash when Leonard Stark talked about making plans? Like what? Go and repeat what that said.
Come up with a plan. Expect the plan to fail. Throw the plan out the window. Make up a new plan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you're going to try to get the people to go towards the city, but then there's this hill and off in the distance.
It's like there's this great TikTok. Okay, there's this great TikTok video where it shows this DM sit down. He has a big 3-ring binder that's just chock full of all this cool stuff, right? And it says City of Varv or whatever. We'll say City of Varv, okay? And he goes, all right, everybody. Sorry, that was my phone. He goes, all right, everybody. You see a massive city sprawled out before you with glistening towers and beautiful flags flying in a huge bazaar. And it's settled in between these two mountain to the right and a field to the left. And then the players go, let's inspect that field. And he goes, oh, it's just a field that rolls on the hills. And then the next player goes, that field's very suspicious. I want to do a perception check on that field. And he goes, oh, it's just a field, guys. You don't have to worry about it. The city. Go back to the city. And forget the city. Let's everybody go towards the field. Yeah, we're going towards the field. And then it just shows him grab a trash can and dump that giant 3-ring folder into it. Because that's what players do 90% of the time. Okay? So I don't plan out things because half the time it doesn't work out. Like, for instance, in one of the campaigns that I played recently, okay, the end goal, okay, was to get to Tiamat, okay, the 5-headed evil female dragon goddess, okay, all right, that was the end goal, okay. There's a lot of things to do on the way to her, and 90% of it was decided by the players. I just kept bringing up Tiamat to remind them, Tiamat, yep, gotta fight Tiamat, Tiamat's still in the threat. Oh, and to make it more of to make it more of a threat in their mind, I suddenly made Tiamat vampiric. Because why not have a dragon be a vampire too? Okay? That made them go, oh, let's go kill that, you know?
And to those of you saying that you would follow the plan exactly, that the DM is like, no, you won't.
No,
Anybody that's played video games knows this.
Well,
you're supposed to go from point to point B. You're going to do everything around.
You're taking from a point from a video game player perspective.
Yeah, I'm showing another angle.
Maybe they've never played video games.
Yeah.
Maybe they never played Skyrim. Maybe they never played Elder Scrolls. Maybe they never played Fallout. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is their video game.
That's true.
And if this is their video game, if this is their thing, if tabletops are their thing and video games aren't their thing, okay, it's a story is something that the DM is trying to lead you through, and the DM is trying to help you find.
Yeah.
But he wants you to, or he or she or it or they or whatever, they want you to forge your own narrative at the same time. You have a character background whenever you play this. You know, we talk about classes and races. There's a background: noble, soldier, outlander, hermit, folk hero, gambler, etc., charlatan. All these different backgrounds that they help define your character. They give you personality traits. They give you bonds, ideals, flaws. Okay, all things to flesh out your character. All right. These are things that when you get your background, your race, and your class together, and along with your stats, all you need is the equipment and your abilities, and you're done. Your character is made. Okay, and some people, they'll have backstories get written. Okay, I don't require my players to write a backstory. I've got one player that he loves telling me paragraphs worth of backstory about his thing. And it's like, man, I'm going to only use a little bit of this. You don't have to tell me 3 pages of information, but whatever. And then I have another person that they don't come up with a backstory until they're playing the campaign. And then I have another person that just says, yeah, my background is my backstory. I was a noble. I'm a noble. That's my story. Okay, that's fine. Okay? So the background is something that the DM can use to help the player write that narrative. If your backstory, Zach, is that your family died in a tragic fire, okay, and the fire was under mysterious circumstances, questionable circumstances, and I play it as the DM, that eventually you figure out that the Baron of the town was the one who set the fire. Do you seek revenge? Do you seek forgiveness? Do you just seek a reasoning as to why? Is he responsible for bringing down other families? Is the Baron the main enemy of the campaign, or is he just a little side note to the whole story, etc.? There's tons of ways that you can go about figuring it out.
And with that being said, that would be a good segue into the next video.
Yes.
And with that being said, I am Zach.
I am John.
And I'm Matt.
And we'll see you next time on Blue's Clues.
Wrong show.
We gotta find another pauper.
Fallout the Beckness.
What?
I don't know. I'm losing crap.
Just remember, Pee Wee Herman's set was full of mimics. Full of mimics!
We'll see you next time.